This video is sponsored by Paperlike. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here. And when I first woke up and saw the news that Apple was updating one of my favorite hardware products, the iPad Pro, I was beyond excited. I started reading the press release and seeing all of the new stuff. Obviously, I have read tons of rumors regarding this product, and I kind of knew what to expect in a way. So I saw the new squared camera bump that had the new wide angle and ultra wide angle cameras, as well as what Apple was calling a LiDAR sensor. I also saw even more exciting things like a brand new Apple Magic Keyboard with trackpad with this really cool design, which, spoiler alert, won't be available until later in May. But then as I pressed on and continued reading all about this iPad Pro, reality started to set in. What in God's name is an A12Z processor? I was expecting an A13X. And what internal upgrades did Apple apply to the iPad Pro, if at all? Well, I think you know where this is going, so why don't we find out by taking a look at the brand new 2020 iPad Pro. First off, the design is pretty much identical to the 2018 model. The model I'm reviewing this year is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and yes, before you start typing away in the comments, asking, Greg, does the 2020 iPad Pro still bend? Yes, it can still bend because it's made out of metal. It's made out of aluminum, and the body is just as thin as last year. So yes, technically it can bend, but you all have brains. Go do a Google search. Go look up Surface Pros bending, Surface laptops bending, Surface books bending, older iPads before this iPad Pro design bending. I guarantee you will find results of your favorite laptops, tablets, and other objects made out of metal bending. It happens. Get over it. What? You still want to make the video where you take the iPad and you bend it with all your strength and you want to get those million views? Go ahead. Oh, you already did it. Haha! Great job. Excellent work. Really giving the viewer the important information about this device. Well, all I can say is after a year and a half of using the 2018 11-inch iPad Pro, I have yet to have any sort of bends after throwing it in my bag or just taking it with me wherever I go, so I think the durability is gonna hold up just fine. Anyway, this 12.9-inch model has the same reduced bezels, the same 1.4 pound weight, 4 speakers, which still sound great, Face ID, which is still the best version of Face ID ever, even beating the iPhones thanks to it being able to work from multiple different angles, and of course, the same great Liquid Retina LCD display at 600 nits of brightness with a 120 Hz ProMotion display, which looks absolutely gorgeous on this giant 12.9-inch display. In fact, last year I used an 11-inch iPad Pro, and this year I'm trying out the 12.9-inch, talking strictly personally from this experience. The 12.9-inch display is great for doing multitasking or just using it more as a laptop alternative where more screen real estate helps out with being more productive. Okay, now I'm sure a lot of you know where this is going, and I'm sure some of you are going, okay, the outside of this didn't change at all, but we're used to this. We know that this year is the spec bump upgrade, right? No, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that, because the inside hasn't changed much at all either. Apple has a new chip called the A12Z, which we now know is basically just an A12X with an extra GPU core enabled, so theoretically you will see some slightly faster graphics performance, but in all of my real-world testing, I didn't notice this change at all. My buddy Travis MCP, who edits all of his videos on an iPad Pro, did a video export test, and the 2020 iPad Pro beat the 2018 model by literally 1 second. So that's the type of performance increase you can expect from this year's model. Now, before I continue this review, I want to mention something else that happened to me. So this year, I actually had a problem with my first iPad Pro. So I had this issue where the display would flash like this pinkish, purplish color and then randomly reboot. And it happened a lot, and I reset it, I reinstalled iPad OS, I did all the troubleshooting steps where you would kind of get rid of a software problem, and from my guess, I thought it was basically a hardware problem. And while I could have definitely made the video where I, hold up my broken iPad Pro with this problem and go, my iPad Pro is broken, Apple stinks now, don't buy their products, and, probably rake in all the views, I decided to do a little bit more journalistic integrity and get a replacement iPad Pro to see if it had the same issues, and also ask other people if their iPad Pro faced any issues. And just like I suspected, my first iPad Pro was just basically a lemon. My second iPad Pro worked perfectly fine, didn't face that issue at all, and everyone I talked to didn't have any trace of this issue. But if you are watching this and this happened to your iPad Pro and it keeps happening, I would love to know in the comments below. So if you have this problem, please get in contact with me in the comments below. Reach out to me on Twitter or send me an email. I would be really appreciative of that. Now, the iPad Pro still comes with two accessories. The first is a smart keyboard cover, which is basically the same as the 2018 model, except this time they stuck an Apple logo on the back of it. But it's still an easy way to attach and detach a physical keyboard to your iPad Pro to make it more of a laptop replacement. The second accessory is the Apple Pencil, which still magnetically charges on the top of the device and offers a reduced 14 milliseconds of latency thanks to the latest iPad OS. Seriously, this really is the perfect stylus for writing and drawing, but if you ever felt that your iPad's display was just a little too slippery, you need to check out our sponsor for this video, Paperlike. Paperlike is the screen protector that makes your iPad's Pro display actually feel like you're writing on paper. Installing Paperlike is super easy to do all by yourself and even comes with a second additional Paperlike screen protector. Once on, Paperlike not only protects your screen, but it also gives a more textured feel that, you guessed it, feels and sounds like paper. Furthermore, Paperlike uses a new nanodot surface technology that shows almost no light diffusion, letting you keep the iPad's great display quality. The nanodot surface also allows for increased control and precision with your Apple Pencil, rather than the default slippery display on the iPad. Paperlike is even great without the Apple Pencil, giving you a more matte finish that reduces fingerprint smudges. Also, Paperlike is available for any iPad, so if you want your iPad's display to feel more like paper, click the link in the description below. And thank you so much to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. Now, there are a few more changes to this year's iPads. For one, they start at a more acceptable base storage of 128 gigabytes for the same $999 price point as the old 2018 model. And the storage upgrades are cheaper as well, so the 256 gigabyte model I have retails for $1,099. On top of that, there is actually also another hardware change inside of this year's model, and that comes in the form of 2 extra gigabytes of RAM. I haven't noticed any changes in my performance from this extra RAM or apps closing down less frequently, but I would suspect it enables at least 1 extra year of iOS software upgrades. Now, when I said the design of this iPad Pro is unchanged, there is one slight design revision, and that is on the back of this year's model with a new squared-off camera bump. This now houses a 12 megapixel wide-angle camera and a 10 megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera. Listen, right now, it's hard to go outside and take pictures. Check the date of when this video is published and you'll know why, but I did manage to sneak away and get a few sample snapshots. And the cameras seem to be pretty good, but not quite at the level of the iPhone 11's camera, which seemed to produce more vibrant colors and details. Also, it loses out on all the software upgrades the iPhone 11 camera got, so it doesn't have things like Apple's new night mode, which makes for much better low light shots. There's also a change to the microphone with what Apple calls a studio quality microphone, and this is the same marketing that Apple used on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I'll let you be the judge for yourself for this one, so here's a recording of the 2018 iPad Pro versus the 2020 iPad Pro. This is a test recording on the newer 2020 iPad Pro with the brand new studio quality microphones. This is a test recording on the 2018 iPad Pro with its old microphones. Now there is one more way significant upgrade to this camera housing, and that comes in the form of a brand new LiDAR sensor. The LiDAR scanner enhances the augmented reality experience to the next level by a few different ways. First, no more annoyingly scanning the room to start placing virtual objects. This translates into an infinitely better one-to-one experience, and that alone makes all the difference. Other than that, the AR is improved as well, with better object placement and occlusion, meaning you can place AR objects behind, under, or in front of real-world objects, and it does a good job of behaving like a real-world object. In fact, multiple times while testing these augmented reality demos, I had this mind-altering experience where I would see the AR object on my iPad's display only to lift my iPad's display away from my eyes and get confused as to why the table was suddenly out of my room. It's impressive and works really well, but as of right now, it's more of a tech demo. I'm hesitant to call it a gimmick, as I think there are some real-world applications for some users. Remodeling a home with the iPad Pro sounds like it would make for a decent experience, but I still feel like 90% of users will quickly forget about this feature, and it's not that this feature doesn't work well, it does, it's just that I think this feature is much better equipped for dedicated hardware, something like augmented reality glasses, rather than an iPad where you have to physically hold it up the entire time. AR is going to require new dedicated hardware that requires much less effort before we see mass adoption. For now, it's a way for developers to play around with these ideas and prepare for that future hardware product. Now, turning more towards the software, these iPad Pros come equipped with iPadOS 13.4. Apple has made a lot of improvements over the years here, with better multitasking options, external storage support, a better Safari that takes advantage of desktop sites, and a slightly revamped home screen. But I feel there's still a lot of room for improvement here, and I would love to see the option to have 3 apps side by side on the bigger 12.9-inch iPad Pro, as well as the option to have floating window support for iPad apps as well. Speaking of iPadOS enhancements, there's one that actually just came out, and that has to do with mouse and cursor support, and that is mainly going to take form in that brand new Magic Keyboard with trackpad accessory. This keyboard adds the much beloved Magic Keyboard with hard instead of soft keys, and more importantly, a trackpad. And while this product won't be available until May, you can actually get a glimpse of how this will work by hooking up Apple's Magic Trackpad to your iPad right now. This gives the iPad a cursor that acts more like a finger than a traditional mouse cursor, and will contextually change what the cursor looks like depending on what it's interacting with on screen. You also get gestures that you can control right on the trackpad, meaning when your iPad's propped up on a keyboard, you won't have to keep uncomfortably reaching up to touch the display. It's cool, and so far I think it works well. Rather than slapping on the macOS cursor, Apple is giving us a precise pointing tool that makes sense on the iPad's touch-first interface. But right now, the experience is disconnected, requiring a big Magic Trackpad accessory that isn't very mobile-friendly, and right now all we have to do is wait for the incredibly expensive $350 for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro Magic Keyboard accessory to see if this Magic Trackpad stuff is really going to change the game, or if this is just going to be the most expensive accessory in Apple history. Furthermore, this Magic Keyboard, personally to me, I'm excited for it. I think it's the most exciting upgrade about this 2020 iPad Pro, and it's not even out yet. But you don't even need a 2020 iPad Pro to use it. If you still have the 2018 version, the new Magic Keyboard accessory with trackpad will work on those older models. So, with the same design, the same processor, and some camera features that most people probably won't end up using, how does Apple keep getting away with this? Well, that's one way you could look at it, but let me offer you another way. So, yes, if you have a 2018 iPad Pro, and if we were just comparing the 2018 to the 2020 iPad Pro, I would say do not upgrade. Definitely wait for another revision and probably wait for another revision beyond that. The 2018 iPad Pro is great, but the 2020 iPad Pro is also great. Now, would I have loved to see what an A13X chip would be capable of? Would I have loved to see those Geekbench numbers keep ticking up and up and up? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, the 2020 iPad Pro isn't slow at all. It is incredibly fast and still an impressive piece of hardware. This model just received some nice little tweaks and updates to people who are buying an iPad Pro for the first time. This was already the best tablet on the market, and it just got a little bit better. So if you've never owned an iPad Pro before, Apple just made the best tablet better, and I still highly recommend it for people who want the top premium iPad, but I don't recommend it for people who have the 2018 version. But anyway, that's what I think of the 2020 iPad Pro. I would love to hear what you have to say about it in the comments below. As always, if you want to help this channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the links in the description. Make sure you check out our sponsor for this video, Paperlike. If you like this video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, definitely make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.